Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service. We wish to take a moment to honor the science of today, of yesterday, and even that of before, presented in this place. For 26 years, I have given you messages over and over. Some of them have sounded perhaps odd, when I've given you truths that were not then validated, or told you things that were not the mainstream of thought. Year after year, some of these things have come to fruition, but only now are you starting to see it validated in this way. I want to fill in the gaps just a little in this final message of this day. The science is complete and it's accurate. And for those who have not been here who are listening to this, it sounds so much like it was torn from a page of Kryon. We told you years ago about how long humanity really was. We gave you the timeline since what we call the seeding, 200,000 years. We told you stories perhaps that you did not believe at that time. We gave you numbers to look at. We gave you unknown history to consider. And here it is right now being validated in front of your eyes. The charts, the graphs, the research. The scientists come only to the edge of giving you what they can give you. And they do this for a reason, because these are the things that need to be validated and proved in research, and they can take you to the edge of who you are. Indeed, it starts to be validated over and over that you may not have come from anything biologically here. The missing link remains the missing link. We said that years ago. We told you it would always be missing because you did not come from anything here. And now these words are being echoed in the very teachings of these last 2 days. They take you to the edge, but they don't tell you who. Esoterics, that's my job. And I start to complete the picture which marries so much to them. They start telling you about fractals. Fractals are the way of all physics, of all biology. You ask a physicist about fractals, and they will give you all of the mathematics, big to little, bigger, smaller, all fractals. Biologists know that everything goes from small to large in fractals. It's simply the way of things. And the teacher, Greg, comes up with the research that is absolutely 100% accurate. When he starts discussing the potential of time repeating itself. You've even heard this in conversation all your life, because it's obvious it does. But could it be that it does it in ways that you haven't even discovered? He's right. I want to take it to another level. I sat in Turkey and I gave you a message of unknown history. It's a good place to give that channel. We told you you would discover civilizations that you have no record of, that you don't believe has happened. We even told you that this planet has had numbers of civilizations before yours, and that they terminated themselves in various ways. And here comes the science. It's starting then to wrap around itself, is it not, dear one? That you're seeing the teachings of the esoteric, of the odd things of years and years from me, from others, start to be validated, discussed, discovered, and researched. And the picture begins to sharpen. I want to talk about the fractals for a moment. It's difficult, if you were not here, to go to the next step, to review. But it's so important because we have spoken of these very things in the past, not the fractals, but the fact that there is patterning and a system and timing to what's going on. The teacher Greg has proposed and done his research well, that the ripples of time would come back upon themselves in a way that you could predict and calculate and plan. And they would occur in such a fashion that they would reinforce one another, and perhaps the positioning of energy would let them occur again, perhaps even stronger than they occurred before. And you find out we're at the end of a cycle. And he's right, we are. The Mayans told us we were, though others that had calendars just like the Mayans or similar to the Mayan long count, they said the same thing. You didn't have to be a Mayan. The prophecy was everywhere. There's a big question. What keeps you from repeating it now? It comes upon you yet again, and the fractals are there, and the history is clear. The patterns are there, and they're the same ones over and over. Why won't you repeat them? I'm going to fill it in esoterically for you right now. Dear ones, there's a fractal that I'm going to call the fundamental. This fractal was not necessarily discussed, but I'm sure the teacher Greg knows it. Sometimes when you're dealing with frequencies, you'll have that which would seem to be invisible because it's not in audible hearing. It's too low to measure. It just sits there and seems to exist, but you can see it. A fundamental beginning fractal. And this is the one that starts the others, and I will show it to you. I'll even give you some numbers to consider. The fundamental fractal is the precession of the equinoxes of the planet. It is a wobble of the planet that is 25,630 years old. That's how long it takes for one wobble to return to the middle. It can vary by approximately 1%, but not much more, due to various physical things over that length of time. 25,630 years, the wobble of the planet. If you take the Mayan calendar long count, exactly 5 calendars fit in to 25,630 years. The civilizations that we talked about, for the reasons that the Mayans gave you the long count, approximately that distance before they would annihilate one another. it all starts to make sense. The fundamental fractal, dear ones, is the reason this is a different cycle. Because you're sitting on the center of the precession of the equinoxes. That makes the difference. It's not simply coming around again like it did before and before and before. This is the center. This is the prediction of the ancients and the Mayans. That's why the calendar stops now. And the fundamental center, the precession of the equinoxes, gives an energy that none of them did before. An allowance in this fractal energy for you to shift it and change it. The proof, you already have started. The fall of the Soviet Union, a good example of a wild card that is starting to show itself with the fractals. Putting things together instead of tearing them apart when you see some of the nations of the planet who used to be enemies. That's different. That's new. It's not going to repeat exactly the way it was. Well, Kryon, you've got some coming up that sound dangerous. In fact, there is a major cycle starting in 2017 that looks ominous, dear ones. I'll tell you why. There's a 36-year window to the precession of the equinoxes, 18 into the center, which is December 21, 2012 in general around the planet, and 18 years out of it. You're still in the 18 years. The time fractals are still there. There's still major potentials. They still could happen in this time frame. Oh, but there's more. And that's what I want to tell you. That's just one thing of many that says that this time it's different. The question is the same. What makes it so different? Why is it so different? You're centered up on the prediction of the ancients, the end of the fundamental cycle, 25,630 years. It gives it a special energy, but that's not it. I told you who seeded you. We told you about human evolution beginning now, where it has been stagnant for so long. We told you it was the Pleiadians. We've discussed human evolution with you. We've given a channel called the Compassion Factor for you to know what really is the difference. What's really going to change with the heart and the mind and the compassion? But you're so linear, you're so 3D. You're saying, will DNA change? Can we watch it change? And I'm going to tell you, of course it's going to change, but not like you think. The farmer has his field and he comes and announces, there's a new kind of crop, a wonderful new kind of crop, and it's going to be growing. And you can hardly wait to go and see if the dirt's going to change. Not understanding it's the seeds that are changing. DNA is not what you think. That was given to you yesterday. It's not some static group of chemicals that are a blueprint that never change for the human body. It's the dirt that the seeds grow in, and the seeds are your consciousness. That is going to change, not the chemistry, not the dirt, but what you do with it. So don't study the chemicals looking for human evolution. Study consciousness shift of the planet. But that's not all. I want you to start using some spiritual logic. There's something that's going on. The Pleiadians are your spiritual seed creative parents. Simple. Most of the earth will not believe that. Oh, the creation story sounds just like it, but it won't involve an ET. The timing of it, very similar, but it won't involve an ET. Because the very linear thought of extraterrestrials are those who would come and conquer you or hurt you. We've said it before, you've got a civilization that has millions of years on you, dear ones. What might that look like? An advanced civilization that has gone through what you've gone through, who has a high consciousness that can control physics. Even with their consciousness, they can control physics. Coming here with a divine plan to give to you what they have, which is the knowledge of dark and light, and give you free choice to work the puzzle. That's what they did. They are parents, and they care. Hands off, but they care. Now I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and I want it to be logical. The Pleiadians themselves gave a time limit, and it is the one you sit on right now. It is the precession of the equinoxes. It is the repeat of the fundamental cycle. If you hadn't made it by now, all of the civilizations that started and stopped, if you hadn't made it by now, you weren't going to make it at all. This is the last chance. And you started turning it around. And because it is the last chance, when the Pleiadians came here all that time ago, they set up a system in case you made it. We gave that to you. It's called the nodes and the nulls of the planet. In case you made it. And you did. And the nodes and the nulls sat there inoperable as time capsules waiting for the right time if you would make it. And now they're starting to open. And there are those who say, this is so esoteric. We've never heard of the nodes and the nulls. Of course you didn't, because you hadn't made it. We gave it to you in the time frame after you had made it. We started telling you these things after you had walked through the 2012 experience, and we saw what was going on, where you disarmed the Third World War. Everyone's still expecting it. It's almost like the other shoe is going to drop, right? I want to ask you a logical question. When you have children, it's time for them to ride a bicycle. And when it's that time, you get them a bike. And what do you do next? You hand them the bike and say, good luck, kid. I know you may fall over and hurt yourself, but that's just the way bikes work. You don't do that. You give them training wheels. You hold the bicycle until they get the feel of it. You run alongside the bike with the training wheels until they got it right. You smile in glee as they get the balance that you know every child will eventually have, and then they pedal off without you. Well, dear ones, the fundamental fractal is at hand, and the training wheels are the nodes and the nulls. They open and begin to wipe away some of the negativity of this planet to give you a fast track. We've been telling you this for years, how they work, how they start to scrub the old energy out with the crystalline grids, the Gaia grid. This entire conference is about remembering, and we are saying, remembering what? I'll tell you what to remember. I want you to remember the original information when you got here. That's what you're remembering. And that is what this node is about to pour out into the crystalline grid and erase the remembrance of war and suffering from this planet. It's gonna change the time fractals themselves. almost a restart. For the crystalline grid is partially responsible for remembering the fractals of time. When they start to be erased, almost a reboot, a restart of what you're going to do next. Wouldn't you do that for your children? Well, let me ask you this. Doesn't it make sense that the Pleiadians who brought you this beautiful energy, called the love of God, and the resource of the source that is central, would also provide for you a way of getting through this evolution of consciousness in an easier way? Don't you think they would give you the training wheels? Doesn't it start to make esoteric sense that this fundamental is here and has arrived, and that is why this one is different. This one is different. Don't let anybody tell you that here it comes again, we're going to do it again. Just because we did it before, this one is different. That's the message for 26 years. Not presented necessarily in those terms, but right away. The first publication started out in chapter 1. There will be no World War III. There will be no Armageddon. You're going to sail through that. 26 years ago, we saw it coming. The fundamental fractal is what is being measured. And that is making the difference of why you're not going to repeat the past and all the minor ones this time around. You have free choice. You can make it as difficult, you can make it as easy. With training wheels, you can still fall over. But it's not as easy to fall over. And you get right back up and keep going. It's a long haul. I'll say it again. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. This is part of a new human. And you're in the right place at the right time. Don't you feel it? What you heard today, what you heard yesterday, doesn't it ring true that something's going on? And I'll tell you what's going on. You are going on. You have a higher consciousness because you sit here asking yourself, what is it? What is it that I feel that's so different? The difficulties you've been through, the recalibrations we've talked about, all part of slow shift into a new consciousness that's going to go right through the old fractals. Congratulations, dear old soul, for coming in at this time. Knowing these would be difficult times, but you weren't going to miss the party, were you? When you come in again, and you will. I said it before, I want you to expect it to be different, because you're going to come in remembering more and more. And so it is.